clicked.
Good evening. Today is Wednesday, January 20th. It's the inauguration day, and the market continued celebrating the new progressive administration. S&P 500 was up over 50 points today, closing just shy of 3850. It was a 100 points rally since the low of the week. The market broke above 3800 overnight, and it was a gradual rally since the open today, without any pullbacks until the end of the day, where it sold off 10 points after hitting 3852. The infamous Soju level, 50. We're gonna talk to Mr. Sogi today later on, so stay tuned in. Nasdaq was also up 2.5 points today after yesterday's large 1.6% move, and it closed above 13,300. There really wasn't that much news today because it was our unbiased media celebrating the inauguration, and everybody was elated that the new president, and especially a vice president, was elected and sworn in. Even CNBC was excited. They had a headline, which I found interesting. Kamala Harris is sworn in as the country's first female, Black, Asian American vice president. I didn't even know she had so many accomplishments. And now that Melania is out of White House, our brave MSM can finally start covering very important topics like fashion again. For example, today's Kamala's purple outfit got a lot of attention. And of course, no violent protests happened because nobody besides MSM was expecting them. And consequently, Biden was talking to an empty lawn surrounded by military. So overall, exciting day for the markets and for the country. Victor, what do you make of this today?
Well, it's a green day. Everything was up.
Indeed.
Bonds were up 1/4 point. Gold was up 20 points. Actually, gold was up $31. Crude was unchanged. There were a lot of executive orders signed today. We're going to be part of the Paris Climate Accord. And there'll be mandates of masks on any federal property. This was the biggest stock market move in terms of percents on any inauguration day. As mentioned, everything was very woke. Everything was very progressive, and the market loves the woke, loves the progressive. So just as you say, it went straight up. There wasn't any decline until 5 o'clock. And we're at a Soju level. We're in the 40s to 50s. And we were above 50, and then we dropped to the 40 level. So I've done some quantifications of what it means. It's very hard to come up with anything definitive on that because all the regularities vary by time of the day, by day of the week, based upon how much the market is gained or lost at that time. I noticed that since 2019, there have been 9 occasions when the market closed between 40 and 50. If you look at the 5 o'clock price, it was 40, but the 4:30 price was 43. But in any case, looking at it as of 16:15, the market had been up 30 points and closed between 40 and 50. There are a lot of cuts, a lot of splits there, but it's happened 9 times in the past. And in general, it's bullish until It's bullish until 3 a.m. You also had a 20-day all-time maximum with a down in the last half hour, the last hour. That's quite bullish. I looked at, in honor of Mr. Sogi, I looked at certain Sogi patterns. There were 20 occasions when we were at a Sogi level and the market was up as of 16:15 since 2019. And it's a positive expectation, about 5 points. But it's very hard. In other words,
Right.
When you're at the Sogi level, how many times does it go to above 50 as compared to going to below 30? It depends upon the time of the day, what the market has done. It's hard to find something that's completely definitive. A lot of times, market revolves around the 50s. It goes back and forth 10 or 12 times. That would be in the numbers also. What did you see in the world of science today?
Not really much going on because the whole world of news is just occupied by the inauguration. The only thing that showed up in the news is that Biden team is now fears that the virus would imperil their pledge to curb the pandemic, which is a little bit absurd given that the whole point of pandemic is the virus. But apparently now they have discovered they cannot fulfill all the promises they have made originally, and that the virus just doesn't obey Biden on demand. So now they're backpedaling their promises to curb the epidemic.
Twitter was up 2 points today, and along with the NASDAQ setting a new high.
Right. All of the progressive technology companies were up. I think Facebook as well was up over 3% at some point. But was interesting that NASDAQ, Netflix just was up almost over 20%, almost 20%. And I was just guessing it's probably because the expectations right now is that the news programs are going to be so boring that Trump is no longer president, that more people are going to watch Netflix. But it's
Did you ever take ballet?
I tried, but when I was a child, but it
There's
flexible enough.
there's a Netflix series about a ballet, a fictional ballet firm. And on this one, the director is not a male who's sleeping with one of the young dancers, but the director is a woman who's sleeping with one of the young boys. And in general, it's the sort of a stereotype of what the ballet is like. It was funny that the Japanese market and the German market were down today.
Right. And there was also lots of news of the Robinhood traders who are beating hedge funds and making all the money while squeezing out all the shorts and squeezing the hedge funds out of positions. So it seems like it's a little bit euphoric, and the sentiment, consumer bullish sentiment, is up over 60% for, I think, for the last 6 weeks or something like that. Here is Mr. Sogi. I'm gonna let him in. Let's see. Hello?
Hello,
Can you hear us?
Mr. Sogi, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Hi, Dr. Niederhoffer.
Hi, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much for inviting me. It's good to see you, Dr. Niederhoffer.
Looks like the weather is lovely in Hawaii. Sunny and beautiful.
It's nice and warm. The sun's starting to come out after a little shower this morning, but yeah, the weather's beautiful.
James, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm 67 years old, and I've been a speculator and involved in the stock markets since I was about 10 years old. And I became more of an active trader in about 2000, just before 2000, maybe in 1998, 1999. And I had the good fortune to make the acquaintance of Dr. Niederhoffer and
You can
learn
call me
quite a bit from
Victor,
him.
James. I'm not that fancy.
Okay. Just trying to keep things ship shape, but thanks. And I read Vic's book and made his acquaintance through the contact information there. And
You've been with us since about 1995, wouldn't you say? Before you became an active spectator.
yeah, maybe it was in the late 90s that I joined the spec list that Vic started up and ran. And it's filled with a number of very professional and innovative thinkers, and all with a scientific approach to the markets, which we've always tried to.
What are your hobbies, Jim?
I enjoy foil surfing now. That's my major hobby. But I also enjoy surfing and skiing, mountaineering, ski mountaineering.
How long have you been surfing? Don't Were you
Maybe
once a
60 years.
were you once a competitive surfer?
Yeah, I was once the Grandmaster champion of the Big Island.
Wow, that's impressive.
My younger days. But one of the things I believe that Vic has always been interested is my use of my surfing knowledge for trading. One of the, I think, innovative ideas that Vic has always come up with and followed is that you get a better understanding of reality through analogies. And very often people are very good at things other than trading. And there are many lessons to be learned from those things in which you are an expert at that you can apply to the trading world that helps you keep a even keel, as Vic likes to say.
So what are some of those analogies to surfing and the markets? Maybe you can tell us.
I think one of the main things I've learned over the years about surfing and sports in general, and which I've been able to apply to the markets, is that you have to be involved at the right place and at the right time and under the right conditions. You can't force your will on the weather. In these sports that I engage in, like ski mountaineering, surfing, you're completely subject to natural conditions. You cannot change the weather, you cannot change the waves, and you have to adapt yourself to those conditions. And ideally, you'll pick the time and place in which conditions are good and only enter then. When you try to say that you're going to go and surf or ski when the conditions are bad, you're putting yourself in great danger. And I think a similar thing applies to the markets, where you need to find out and determine when is the best time and what are the best conditions to try to execute your trades. If it's a choppy, narrow market, you're just going to be hurting yourself. The time to get in is when there's good volatility. And
What is
so
what is your regimen in surfing? Don't you generally get there early in the morning and somehow you know where the waves are?
well, like trading, things have advanced since the early days, and now you can just look at in the internet,
Right.
and they have webcams and surf reports and satellite reports about the weather and the waves that are coming in, and they can predict it quite accurately, but not absolutely accurately, within a day or two of when the weather or the waves are going to arrive. For example, this winter here, we've had the best big wave season in history that I can remember. And pretty much every day has been big waves, good conditions. And we've been having a great season, but we have surf reports that predict 50-foot waves coming in the next day. But I always have to take those with a grain of salt, because the local conditions change the prediction quite a bit. The local mountain, the local weather, the local reef, the local water and the wind, all change your approach. So even though you might be expecting big waves, you have to go down with an open mind and look around you
Do you
carefully.
do you have a time that you like to surf? Time of the day?
Mornings tend to be good, but a lot of it is dependent on the tide. A lot of spots at low tide will be too shallow, and it becomes dangerous to try to surf because the rocks are sticking out. So it might be better with a higher tide. Other spots don't break at a high tide, so it really varies where you go and when you go, but you always try to get a combination of the optimum conditions before you commit yourself.
Have you noticed any patterns in the waves that are similar to the markets?
Yes, the best time to go is when the waves are big. When they're big moves in the market is often the best time to be trading. When there's no motion, when nothing's happening, you just get either chopped up or surprised by a big move when you get a breakout. What I find in surfing and in the market is to wait till they're big waves and then try to get involved at that time.
Have you ever been in danger while surfing?
I've come close to drowning a couple of times.
And yet you keep going back?
Yeah, I always keep going back. It's not quite as dangerous as it looks. I mean, you can get banged up and you can cut your finger, but the number of people that actually drown and die is very few compared to many other sports. So it's
Are the
good
odds
exercise.
of being eaten by a shark higher than the odds of drowning?
The odds of being bitten by the shark are so very low that it's almost negligible. It happens. Recently in Hawaii, we've had a number of shark attacks, but it's one of those things, it's one of those mental heuristics that people are deathly afraid of sharks. I mean, deathly afraid of them, irrationally so. But the sharks
Like sell-offs
don't
in the market.
they don't bother you in the water when you're paddling in the water purposely with strong intention. They don't bother you. It's when you're injured, bleeding, or flailing that they come and get you. Just like the markets, when you're hurt and down, they can sense that and they'll take you down.
What kind of music are you interested in?
I play guitar and mostly rock and roll, classic rock and roll. I have a band.
Ukulele also, right?
Yes, I play some ukulele, mostly for my grandkids. Play children's songs.
Do you have a group?
Yeah, I have a rock and roll band that we
Wow.
play.
Nice.
What do you play around the island?
Mostly, no, we just play for ourselves. Some of the other guys in the band are professionals and they play around the world and on the internet and do recording, but myself, it's more a hobby, more for fun.
What other hobbies do you have? You're a world traveler. I know you're always.
Well, before COVID, yeah, I did a lot of traveling around and searched for the perfect wave and powder snow. But this year I've just been staying here in Hawaii and foil surfing, which has been an interesting journey, learning how to do that.
Do you have a
How's
favorite mountain to ski?
We have a 14,000 foot mountain here on our island, and just last couple of days we had some snow, but that's not enough to ski. But
Right.
some years it snows enough that you can go up there and ski. So quite a unique experience to surf and ski
Right.
the same day.
Jim, you're an attorney. How do you mix your attorneyship with your trading and your surfing and your music? How do you balance?
Yeah, I'm retired now from law, so I have more time to devote to other things. But when I was practicing them in Hawaii, the markets opened at 3:30 in the morning, so I was able to catch, and they were done by 10:30 in the morning. So I was able to get most of the day in for the trading, and then attend to my other duties in the afternoon. But it's brutal waking up at 3:30 in the morning, I'll tell you.
Do
Very
you,
tough.
you used to sleep with the prices flashing by. Do you still do that?
Yeah. I find I do better when I don't watch the prices and I just go to sleep and come back at the end of the day. I find if I try to micromanage my trades, I know typically I'll do the wrong thing.
Well, what lessons have you learned about trading? And you've been trading now for 25, 30 years. And what are the main lessons you've learned?
Well, I guess there's three big lessons, and these are kind of the magic. People always ask, what's the magic secret to the market? And the first of all is, of course, money management. On the list, we have an author named Ralph Vince, who's written a number of books on risk management and money management. And he has some interesting ideas and formulas, which I've taken to heart and which have helped me quite a bit, mostly in saving me for myself, but two.
What sort of leverage? What sort of leverage do you like to use when you're trading?
Well, since I've started more strict money management, I try to keep my leverage down to about a fifth or a quarter per trade of my total assets for my active trading portfolio, so that you might get 2 or 3 trades going at once, but you're not leveraged. You're not over leveraged. I found that before I used to leverage up higher, too high, and it was fine until you got an adverse move and you suffered major setbacks. I think I found over the long term that using the lower leverage has led to a longer term, steadier growth of your personal net worth. The other major lessons I think I've learned, and it's only in hindsight that you can learn that, but it's that time is the most important thing in the market. You can't beat the compounding of interest over time. I just set up my grandson with some money for his trust, and he bought in on the bottom day of the crash this year. And he's in it for the next 70 years, hopefully. And you just can't beat the money that you put in when you're young, under 30, for the rest of your life. If you put in a steady amount each year or each month when you're young, you'll never beat that for the rest of your life after age 30. If you keep putting the same amount of money in. So the secret is to invest young and let the money ride.
How old is
says
your
over and over.
grandson? How old is your grandson?
1 year old.
He's got a long time.
What is your
Yeah, that's the key.
what's your family like?
I have a son and a daughter, and my daughter has 2 children, 2 girls, and my son has 1 son. And he's here visiting us now while the COVID's going on, working from home. And my son, Kenny, says hi to you, Vic.
Oh, good. What
says hello.
What's the situation with COVID in Hawaii?
It's very good. We have a 1.4% positivity rate, and on our island, it's only an average of 9 new cases over the last 7 days, and we only have 55 cases over the last 14-day rolling period. So it's quite good.
All right, now everybody is fantastically interested in your 50s. Where did you come up with that?
It's one of those things that, like Yogi Berra said, it's amazing what you can learn by just watching and watching the market. And like Galton used to do, he would just count things on his fingers. And it's surprising the kind of discoveries you can make just by watching and counting things on your 10 fingers. And one of the things I noticed was that the prices seemed to cross the 50s, the round 50s, 3250, 2750, 3050, a lot. And they would tend to get into a range
Going up
across the 50s
both
over and
ways,
over during the day.
both ways, going up, going through it from below and going through it from above? Do you find one is more likely than the other? I find that when I see a 45 or a 46, and it's the first 45 or 46 during the day, when you get 4 or 5 below a 50, invariably it crosses the 50 level. And it might not be permanent. Often it will break from the 50s to the 60s. Today is a typical example. We got to the 40s and we got to 38.40, and before you could say Jackie Robinson, it was 38.52.
Right.
And then it was back. So how do you play those 50s in your own trading? What do you aside from?
I think I try to buy on the down through the 50 in the 40s, high 30s.
When it's gone from above, or when it's gone up, when it's gone up?
When it's coming down. When you have a good example was over Martin Luther King Day, over the opening of the market, we had that drop down to the 50, the 37.50 area, and it dropped down a little below that. So there was a good buy under the 50 with an expectation that it might go back up above 50. And
yeah, it went down to
see that it did.
37.46, and it's had a nice 100-point continuous move up since then.
Right. And here we are now again up in the 38.50 range. And according to the theory, we would expect to see a little bouncing around maybe tomorrow or tonight around that 38.50. And the way things are going, I guess the move will continue. Who knows? I'm not sure.
What do you think? Do you have a prediction for the market at the end of the year? You think we'll see
I tend to be pessimistic in general, and that's why I'm not as successful as I could be in the market. But what I think is going on is that there's a lot of young new traders, a lot of new money coming into the market. They're all very optimistic. I don't think they're as worried about the COVID problem. And I think there may be some dips, but as you say, very often, 38% of the time we're always at new highs. And then under I think it's the power law, that the year ends and beginnings and period ends and period beginnings tend to be at the high or the low. So it's hard to make a prediction other than things are going to keep moving higher. And that's one of the other things about in the market, is that when you diversify, you have a natural kind of protection, especially with things like the SPY or the SP 500, because there's a natural kind of survivorship function going on where the failed companies drop away, and new companies like Tesla or whatever the latest, most productive industry is going to go up 10-fold, 100-fold, 1,000-fold as new technology comes in, new ideas come in. So no matter how bad things may be, there's always a new idea that no one ever thought of that will change the world and move the market higher and higher and higher. I always wondered how that works, but it's something that is going to just keep on continuing, new ideas.
Right. Have you invested into Tesla?
No, I haven't. It's a, you know.
Jim, I've always been very impressed with the diversity of your interests. Do you? I guess there's not much musicals out in Hawaii, but I know your wife is a very, and your daughter are very good dancers. Do you dance also?
No.
What are some of the what are the last 10 books that you've read that you might recommend to us?
Right now, I just started a book by Hannah Fry. She's an English woman, and she's writing about algorithms and how they affect our day-to-day life. One of the examples she gives is an experiment that they did in England or Ireland, I forget. And they asked a group of people to compare two potential political candidates. And they gave them a platform, which they named Cadoodle, to provide information about those two candidates. And on that platform, one of the candidates, just picked at random, was featured as the first result that popped up. And throughout any search or any interaction, the top results would always be towards that candidate.
Oh, what?
And what they found was that more than 12% of the people above that, over 64% of the people followed that candidate. And they felt that subjectively it was their own decision, but with a control group that had not had that preference for that candidate, they had 12% fewer votes. And the point is that the kind of algorithms such as Google or that come up on Amazon can really influence people in a very subtle and insidious way. It's interesting.
You also keep up with the scientific literature. What are the statistics books that you enjoy?
I haven't read any serious statistics books for a while, but you recently recommended one on survival statistics, and I've always enjoyed survivorship analysis. And my thinking of that would be how one of the uses would be how long is a bull market going to last? When is the bull market getting tired, so to speak? What are the intervals between the crashes? Those are the kind of subjects that might be a good subject to study with survivorship analysis. One of the things in music is the spaces between the notes, the rests. And it's very important in creating rhythm and creating the feel of a tune. But the spaces between events in the market are also very important. The time between crashes, the time between bull markets, the time between tops, the time between bottoms. And those are some kind of things that survivorship analysis can kind of shed some light on it. Nothing definitive, but
How does
give you a good feel.
How does the new regime, the new political regime affect your thinking?
I think that the old regime dropped a lot of bombs into the market. There was a lot of surprise events that created some volatility. And we've had a lot of volatility this year. It's been good. But I think with a new administration, we might return to a lower volatility regime. I remember for years we had days and days and days with a 7, 8, 10 point range, and it made short-term trading pretty useless. But it was during a bull market where you have a steady rise day after day, new highs, new highs, new highs, with absolutely zero volatility.
Who was
And,
the psychological behavior Skinnerian author that you recommend in terms of behavioral psychology books?
His name was Jerry Patterson. He was the head of the Oregon Research Institute. He did behavioral work with troubled teens and children. But he wrote a wonderful book for anybody with children called Living with Children. And in it, he suggested that the best way to raise a child would be in a scientific manner by rewarding them for behaviors that you were trying to encourage, like washing the dishes, making your bed, good grades, but specifying them clearly in advance so that, say, a child washed the dishes 3 days during a week, he would get his allowance. But if he didn't wash them 3 days, he wouldn't get his allowance. So the expectations were clearly stated in advance, and in that way shape the behavior. What I see sometimes with parents is that they use parental approval or withholding of love and affection as a way to try to control a child's behavior. And I personally think that's a mistake, because I think a child needs unconditional love to prosper.
Oh, what other advice would you have for our viewers and listeners? What kind of life advice do you have? You seem to have a very balanced and harmonious life. How could others follow, learn from you?
Well, I think what people that are successful say is that you have to follow your heart, your desire, and do the things that you love and what you want to do. I think the idea of doing what you feel you have to do or what people tell you to do doesn't lead to your full involvement and your engagement in whatever path that might be. And I think if you follow what your true desires are and follow them with all your energy, that you'll achieve those.
You're a great aficionado of coffee.
Yes, we're hearing about Kona coffee.
I grow Kona coffee on my property. I pick it.
The beans?
And pick the beans. I pulp the beans into parchment, dry them in the sun, which is very important.
Right, it's the best.
Slowly in the sun. I have the skin milled off, and then I roast it just before I'm about to brew it. And it's the best coffee in the world.
What brewing method do you use?
I do a pour over through a cone.
Right. Yeah, we love pour over coffee as well, and
You're
especially sun dried.
What other what other aspects are in your diet?
For the last year, I've been a vegan, and I have found it to be very good. I feel like I have more energy. I feel like I have less inflammation, less soreness. My digestion is better. I sleep better, and one of the main unexpected benefits is my breathing is clearer and better through my sinuses. you breathe 24 hours a day, and you don't realize what a big part of life it is, but it's the biggest part of life there is. And I found my diet to be very helpful.
Vegan, absolutely no eggs, no dairy, no butter, or
No dairy, no eggs, no butter. I'm not absolutely strict, so I try to do 95% vegan, and I'll have fish every now and then.
Does your family follow your new diet?
My wife follows it pretty well, but
Is
no
she,
one else.
is she still
who's cooking the diet? That's what I'd like to know.
is she still dancing?
When the occasion comes up, she'll do a chant or do a dance. Our volcano recently went off, so it brought up an opportunity to do a chant and a dance regarding Madame Pele, the goddess of the volcano.
What other question should I have asked you, or what would you like to leave us with? That
Well, I'd like to thank you for many things that you've done. The education, things that you did for my son.
well, the feeling is mutual. You're one of the highlights of my life, that I had interactions with you. I've learned so much from you. You're probably the most prolific contributor to the spec list, and you're a very good man, James, and
Thank you.
I'm very proud to have been associated with you. One of the great things of my life. Jim, thank you very much. And I've done some work on the 50s, and it's hard to do a Galtonian study of it, because
Yes.
as I say, it varies by day of the week and time of the day, and based upon how much the market is up or down. But there's no question but that have you uncovered any other regularities like the 50s? Do you find the hundreds have the same impact as the 50s?
I haven't studied it or quantified it, but it just seems to me that the hundreds get blasted through to the upside quite regularly and quite easily, especially the first blast through. Like this 3800 just was nothing. It just went right through, right to the 3850 area. And then it seems like the lower, once blasted through, it seems like a lower bound where you get a good bounce off that lower round. I haven't quantified that, but that's just my impression.
You're a fan of Galton. You've read some of his work?
I've read some of his work. I respect the idea of counting. I'm not sure I'm a fan of some of his ideas, but yeah, counting is one of the most important statistical tools that anyone can have or use on a regular basis.
How do you use that in the stock market? Do you trade a lot of different markets, or mainly S&P?
No, mostly S&P and bonds. Well, when I notice something like this 50s thing, I'll do a rough count just on my hands or a piece of paper for a couple of days. And when you start seeing 8, 9, 10, 15, 20 crossings a day, it's one of those things that, makes you go, is something happening here? Is it a regularity? Is it something worth a study? Yeah, sure.
Are you a fan of cryptocurrencies?
I've been watching them, and I think they're a really big opportunity. My son gave me some cryptocurrency some years ago, but at the time, for some reason, the state of Hawaii wouldn't allow account in crypto to open. So unfortunately, I missed that last big boom. What, no more than a couple of months ago, was down below around 4,000. And it's one of those things where you look back and at the time you think, oh, this might be a good buying opportunity. And then when it's approaching 40,000, you think to yourself, how you missed the boat again.
Do you buy any individual stocks as well as the market?
No, because that's one of the other things I wanted to mention about what are the secrets of the market. One of them is not obviously, one of them is diversification, asset diversification. By buying SPY, you have an automatic diversification. By buying bond funds, you have an automatic diversification, which is a great potential. It limits your upside, of course, but it provides some diversification. That's what the venture funds are doing now.
Do you have a outcome in your mind as for bonds now? Do you feel that there will be inflation and that it will bring bonds down, or that the printing of new money and the unlimited support of the market will?
Yeah, well, the Fed said that they're going to let it go above 2%. And I mean, for the past 5 years, everybody said that inflation was going to take off, but yet bonds have been going up and up and up and up. I think there's been a recent correction in bonds. I bought some bonds. I have some bonds now. So I'm not sure that what the pundits say and what the bond market are doing.
What percent of your assets are stocks versus bonds?
Right now, 100% of my trading fund is in bonds. I'm not holding any S&P right now. Is in bonds. I have some bonds.
Is what?
In bonds. I'm holding a bond position.
Not stocks?
Not stocks.
Do you agree with the Dimsonian results of 50,000-fold a century in stocks?
Yes, I do. It's true. And the smartest thing is obviously, not so obviously, but the smartest thing is to stay long in stocks. But I'm just mentally incapable of doing it. So I don't, to my disadvantage.
Jim, thank you very much. It's a privilege to interview you, and good luck to you.
Thanks, Vic. Good talking to you again.